We should be live. Hey everyone, we're live? We're getting started. Okay. Perfect. Let me take a look. Happy Sunday, everybody. Just make sure that we are 100% good to go. Just going to check some of these settings here. Okay, so we are going to have a session here. We're going to discuss a little bit. We're going to discuss a little bit of a variety of different topics, and that's going to also include some general money discussion and business ideas. That's something that it's so difficult to discuss on Twitter because there's just such a wide variety of questions, and obviously, my background is in the markets as well, but also as a fund manager, and did it at a young age. I was a CEO of a tech company for several years, so I think that's also a good one as well. And I'm happy to discuss some ideas as best as possible. I think there's a lot of things that people can do to improve their financial situation that, outside of just generally outside of trading, there's a lot of different ways to invest, right? I tell people, like, you wouldn't know where I made my money because I was a CEO for 7 years, right? And I was Fortune 50 before then, and then I work in the private equity. So there's a lot of ways to approach things. We'll discuss a little bit about the markets as well, of course, trading strategies, and sort of just forecast ahead on what we're looking at. So let me take a look here. I see a lot of pup talk. I love it. I'm in my home office because it's Sunday. I don't like to go into the office on the weekends if I can avoid it. It's if I have like a meeting where it's appropriate. I don't do meetings with people at my house, but I usually don't like doing in-person meetings if I can avoid them. Per my hi Amber. per my Friday ventures. I'm sure you guys saw the video I posted with the cappuccino. That's the thing that, if it doesn't have to be an in-person meeting, I like to avoid it as much as possible. And let me take a look here. So, hey, everybody, download. Oh, yeah, see Ellie and Zero are making discussions. Notice Ellie and Zero are two of the pups of certain members, but of course I think of the pups first. Just the way I am. And Amber, yes, hello, special hello. Madhukar, okay. Great. Different investing opportunities outside of the markets. Okay, yeah. That will be one. Yeah, so that was just sort of the close on it. Yeah, I'm one of those. I got a few questions about it. It's like, what do you hate about meetings? I think that was it Naval Ravikant put it eloquently, but I had the same opinion, and I always have. Even like I'm talking 2005, 2004, 2003. It used to drive me crazy. If it can be an email, it should be an email. If the email can be a text, it should be, if the in-person meeting could be a phone call, it probably should be a phone call. If a phone call could actually be an email, probably should be an email. And if the email could just be like a text, make it a text. And usually that's the case. It's one, if not two rungs down. So I don't like it. And of course, in my space, you get a lot of people who are interested in meeting, having discussions, oftentimes about things that have already been discussed. And it requires travel. So I'm a little bit... It's not a finance thing. It's just stingy. I'm stingy about my time because it's disruptive to my schedule, right? Like, it sounds lavish and fun, but it's not really that fun. You have to wake up early, get to the airport, and then fly, and then, take a cab to wherever new place. So it's just extremely disruptive, right? And it makes it harder for me to manage with the fun because I'm doing a lot of collaborative work. Okay, enough about me. Maybe one day I'll do one of those like vlog a day in the life of. Yeah, that'll be the day. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so just discussions on the markets. I'm going to show you guys an image actually. So for those of you who are insiders, and we're going to have a follow-up email about this today, but it's pretty cool. As dead on as it could get, and I talked about how I don't guess with the markets. I hate guesswork. It drives me crazy because I see a lot of those a lot of the furus out there doing that. And every week we jump into furu scams. Guys, just remember, I won't name anybody's names. If you mention a specific name, I'll only talk about like methods and things people do. I don't like naming people, even if they deserve it. I think it's beneath me to like call people out specifically. It's just nonsense, and it's a whack-a-mole game. But one thing we did talk about, and there was no guesswork here, was, let me find this image. I talked about the markets before Powell, and I said one of two things are happening. There's far more downside potential here, unless he were to say something absolutely wild. The Furus were completely panicking on Friday, but they'll probably said, if it goes up, it goes down. I gave specific projections, and I explained what I felt Powell might say, but it would be difficult, and I'm going to bring that image over here. So if you guys are looking at this, if you're insiders, you've seen this. I'm not sure what happened in the captions. I'm not sure if the one I sent with insiders was a caption or if I saved the wrong one. But there were captions, and the captions, I broke it down in the email. So basically the blue boxes, I said, this is our potential for upside if we stay the course neutral or if Powell is dovish. But there's a lot more space on the downside, and that's where we're heading if... and this is of course before Powell spoke, because we're right here right now. I said we're moving down from here. This is where we closed 419.61. We're going to move down into the midpoint or somewhere in this red box. We're heading right down if Powell says anything that is hawkish. And I explained that there's a lot more. You can see the red box is a lot bigger. I explained to insiders there's a lot more space to the downside, and I gave a detailed breakdown exactly why. So no guesswork. We moved right down into that's the SPY. Our range was 390 through about 410. That's sort of the give back on that, and we'll bring up SPY here. There you go. Right in between 390 and what I thought was like the bottom end range, 410. Where are we? Almost right in the middle would have been 400. We're at 403. So now I can't predict the exact down in the penny sort of thing. Actually, we closed at 405 and then we continue to fall after market. And I gave, and I said that we wanted to trade. It would be AMD to the upside. The AMD will move once we get going again. I've spoken about AMD for months and months and months. It drives me crazy. Everybody now is all of a sudden saying AMD, although remember the Furu favorite and the market favorite was NVIDIA, and NVIDIA actually went the opposite direction. And I've posted multiple times, and you can use Twitter search to search and see if you're new, to see if I'm just saying this after the fact. I don't do hindsight nonsense. I've been talking about AMD for a while, and to insiders, I explained exactly what I was looking for from AMD, which is why I stayed endorsing AMD after they were posted less than perfect earnings according to some. So it sold off on the market, but then rebounded the right the next day. So that's exactly where we are. Previous, but the market responded as negative. Madhukar, so I'll try and go in order. He didn't say the same thing. It's a little bit different, right? The market was reading into it. So essentially, the way that this worked, for anybody who's curious, and I came out, I gave my interpretation when he was speaking. I said this was hawkish, and this is exactly what was hawkish. The markets misinterpreted last time, and I've continuously said that. I said we're not getting. This isn't positive. You've seen me post on unusual whales. You've seen me post on my feed about credit, debt to GDP ratios, all the kind of thing. Like I go on and on with a litany of items saying this is weakness, even challenging the jobs reports, which they tried to hang their hats on and say, hey, this is a weird recession. We're doing great with a robust jobs market. I've said constantly it's softer than they're saying. We lost 71,000 white collar jobs, but nobody talked about it. 300,000 plus out of the 528 that was reported were all part-time jobs, slack work, people who wanted to work full-time or wanted more hours and couldn't get them. So that doesn't speak as well to the markets. There were so many different issues that I kept pointing out, but the market interpreted it positively because they felt that he said something dovish and we might pivot. And I think my words were, and I don't mince my words like Furus where I say it could go up, could go down. I said this is lunacy. That's a pretty definitive term. I said people who are thinking this way are lunatics. You're mentally unstable or you're lying. There's every bit of data was saying no. There's more problems, right? And PCE went up last month. And I also will continue to say that, hey, it's one thing to talk about a slight pullback in CPI, but what I noted was I said, guys, the target rate is 2%. We're nowhere near that, and we're not getting moves on core inflation. The over celebration of an initial pullback, not a good idea. So let's just see here. When I say let's see here, I'm just trying to catch up on the questions. Make sure. So if you share the best way to go short, BTC in stocks and ETFs. James, I don't know if that's interested. Oh, James T. Yeah, I like to actually short the underlying, although there are some calculations involved with that. You can also take puts. It really depends on your time frames. You can also buy inverse funds like the SQQQ or the TQQQ if you want to sort of get these mini index funds and get liquidity there. So it really just depends on your timelines. If you have a short timeline, which I always say is much more difficult to predict, I say this all the time. In terms of volatility and problems, I can better predict. Always, for us, our long positions are much more straightforward and stable. But then it's almost as though a day trade is easier than a swing trade. I hate to use the word easier, but a day trade, you can calculate specific moves and volatility and take advantage and exploit those moves. I mean, I don't have to iterate that. How many have I done and how accurate is my track record, and I only call to one direction, so it's not as though I guarantee myself a win either way, right? Because if you said calls and puts here, yeah, of course it went up, and when it went down, you got puts. So swings are a little bit more difficult in this environment, but it is starting to loosen up. Prior to here, we were just seeing wild gap ups and gap downs, and that's problematic because it could stop you out even if you have the right direction. So yeah, a lot of different tools. You're going a little bit longer, and depends on your risk tolerance. Obviously, high risk tolerance, short term, you're going to go with options to leverage your capital. Something like the SQQQ, if you want to go a little bit longer, not have that same volatility where you're dealing with theta, and short the position if you're looking for a move, and you can recycle that capital. So hopefully that helps. Sitting here with Zero. Hi, Zero. I'm walking my dog. Ellie, yeah. Shout outs to Zero and Ellie. Demlin and I got questions. I got questions, and I got answers. Let me see here. So I'm going to move down, just look at some questions, and then we're going to get into different topics, but we'll let it flow. Hopefully, you can ask questions within those topic fields. And we saw that image that I sent to insiders. Our call to the downside and insiders for Friday, by the way, as I said, when we start seeing the markets drop, our move is going to be Meta, because Meta will get hammered. And anybody who's in the insiders, you could say here, I was a little bit less than agile. This is actually my own line. That's where I got in, but that was great. Mind you, I took two different trades on Meta. One was to the underlying. I was happy to take it about. We tried to get 170, and then we got it about 169 and some, and then managed to get my options play right there. But here was Meta, all the way bleeding down. We actually peaked at 170. We closed at about 161, so it's 9 points. That was our call out for insiders, and of course AMD would have been the call to the upside if the markets moved to the upside. So I'll get back to the QQQ. There's a QQQ. Got burned. Back to the questions or discussion. Let me see here. What podcast? I was about to get podcast discussion, please. Yeah. I will have to plan out how to whether I can commit to a podcast. I just want to get everything organized. Say, hey, it's going to be this many times per month. This is going to be the length, and this is how we're going to approach it. And sort of this is the structure that I want. I don't like to commit to anything unless I'm going to do it and do it right. I remember people were asking for something like insiders for a while, and I said I couldn't look at anything like that until the first quarter of 2022. So back in 2021, I just had to say no. It takes me a little while, but I want to do things right when I do it. So I will, hopefully that could be something we do. How do you use relative volume? So, Maître Calderon, hopefully I got that right. C'est français? Je parle un peu de français. I think that's French. Anyways, and I do speak French. So, this is our vol. So relative volume standard deviation. What does that mean? Just the sort of the basic general overview of that. It tells you relative to normal volume, to typical trading times, that volume is elevated. So let me switch over. You're going to see some big spikes of volume on pretty much everything. But if we look at a normal day, and let's see here, let's go to a 5-minute period, and let's just go back somewhere like this. Okay, so you usually see higher volume in the open because relative to normal volume, it's spiking. So you see these big exaggerated, 7 times the amount of normal volume. Then it subsides through the day. If you see like a spike, that's strange. Of course, relative volume is higher in the open, higher in the close. You see that almost every single day. So let me zoom out. Higher on the open, higher on the close, higher on the open, higher on the close. So you just have to understand what your baseline is, meaning what does the volume normally look like? So is it normally here? Did we spike up with something really different? Where did things pick up, right? Normally, midday, you see it kind of slow down. You see kind of similar patterns here for Facebook. But if I saw a relative volume spike here, that would tell me something's happening. And, it could tell me that there's a move with an institution. It could tell me that there's news. So what it does is it tells me there's far more activity than usual. And that draws my attention. Of course, lower volume, overall volume profiling is a little bit separate, but relative volume tells you sort of what's going on in that time period relative to other days. So if you see big spikes, that means relative to the normal trading volume, we've shot up, and that's what they call it, relative volume standard deviation. It helps you get a gauge on what's going on, and when you start to pair it with other things, it paints a more clear picture. And if that leads to a good analog. So you guys have probably heard me say this. The reason that I hate the one-liner Furu, just garbage explanations. Obviously, these aren't serious people. They're not real professionals. I hate all those kind of things. If you try to do that for anybody, like if you tell somebody fitness and health, the way to do it is take this pill and everything's good, or do this magic diet, and anything is oversimplified. I hate all that because it's con artists. It's more about painting a picture, figuring out the picture and painting it, right? So if you look at relative volume, that helps you paint one part of the picture. Oh, there's increased activity. So maybe you switch over and you look at the news panel and you see there's a major deal that just came in. Oh, interesting. And then you see, maybe Facebook was oversold, Meta, based on some negatives from their earnings. And now we have something that might change their prospects, right? And when you combine those, now you have what I call a better painted picture. So if you're constantly updating this, it could be a snap of the fingers agile. Like I could see something and say, yeah, okay, that's our signal. That changes everything if I understand the news or the development. And if you don't, sometimes you can miss it because you don't really understand the impact, and that's okay, right? I mean, there are thousands of companies that we monitor, and we monitor closely, maybe a couple hundred. I think I do a pretty good job of understanding very quickly what the impact is, but there's only so many businesses and items and elements that you can have top of your mind. So if you're thinking a scalp, but it will certainly help with your trading. So I see the relative volume jump. I look at a stock. I say, okay, this stock has been sold off because they thought, there was headwinds coming forward and, tough times on the horizon. Now we've got some news. Now the volume's picking up. That paints a picture to me and says, all right, institutions are pivoting on this quickly. We need to make a move. And usually my screen will start just flying because, of course, in the day I have people collaborating on my screen, moving windows, all kind of things. It gets kind of fun. And I move off what I do with Twitter, so it all gets a little bit jumbled. But yeah, paint the picture. So let me see. Would love more discussion in different investing opportunities outside of the markets. Yeah. Let's get into that. Let's have some conversations. Of course, you guys can ask some questions on that, and put some questions into that. If not, I will start adding a few of them myself. Agreed on 90% of meetings should be an email. Yeah. So you guys want a fun story? Just a little bit of the robot's life. The one time I ever in my professional career can recall being anything that would even approach being reprimanded or spoken to a little bit more seriously had nothing to do with performance, of course. Was when I was with P&G, and we were having just meetings every day. Started 7, and they go to like 6, and these are in-person meetings. I don't want to say too much. I have a lot of respect for the people that I worked with. But sometimes when you do these travel events and the national management team all gets together, they're not as substantive as you'd like. And someone like me gets sort of crazy about that sort of thing. I need to be productive. It needs to be substantive. My mind needs to be stimulated. There needs to be focus and reason. Otherwise, I could be doing something more productive. So I was uncomfortable, and I ended up wearing like sweatpants, but I had, professional attire above. So I got spoken to about wearing sweatpants because I think I did it 2 days in a row, and then they were like, "Hey, I knows you've been wearing sweatpants. No one else is doing that. Put your formal pants on." And in my mind, I'm like, "Man, you got me here for like 11 hours of sitting in a chair and looking at presentations, and a lot of them are kind of like Disneyfied. Like, hey everybody, we are so excited." Just the tone drives me crazy because I feel like I'm in a commercial that makes me want to pull my head off. So yeah, a little bit from the personal life. I got in trouble because I wore sweatpants. I was uncomfortable, and yeah, but that's the take on meetings being in person. So now you see people wearing their underwear, and you can't see it because they're just torso up on these Zoom meetings and all that sort of thing. But yeah, in general, I think if a meeting is substantive, there's reason, there's a relationship building. It's a little bit more confidential. You're going to get people coming in out of town. We can make it, and it makes sense. As you guys saw, I was at a meeting on Friday. Yeah, and I had a lot of people writing me saying they caught the sign. They said, Piper Sandler and RBC Capital, which one? I videoed the sign. I won't disclose specifically which one. Okay. So yeah, that's on meetings, and 1,000% agreed. Hate clients set up a 5-minute meeting. Yeah. Upcoming week, continue market plunge. I think that there's, to quote Powell, Zach Milburn, there's pain ahead. There's pain ahead. Momentum opening. Yeah, last 108. I have a full video about that. Fours are panicking on Friday. I think fours panic every day trying to figure out how they're going to lie, but they find the kind of audience that they can lie to. And then there's no panic anymore, because once you find a sucker that you can dupe, you don't have to be a good liar. Let's see here. Madhukar, responded, love advice on sticking directional bias. Friday was mentally biased to the upside and couldn't shake the bias all day despite the massive crash. Yeah, Danya. Yeah, there's no reason. You just have to respect the gravity of a specific situation. Did you not read the insider email, Danya? You're awesome. I know you read these things. I said specifically, this is going to be contingent on the direction that Powell takes. And I gave the boxes. You saw the boxes in the images. Said, here's the bias. Nope, don't close that. Don't delete it. I had captions in here. Like this caption should have said, if dovish, here's where we can expect the markets to go into close. And if hawkish, we're heading right in here. And at the time we were at 419. So that gave a lot of movement. If you saw it just start to, we really tanked. I think you have to understand as best as you can. That's why, and that's what I do to help everybody in Insiders. And I want you to understand what's happening and the gravity of it. I wrote very seriously. It was to Insiders. I wrote a pretty lengthy email explaining the gravity of the situation and all the other precursors within the market. And that's why that red box was bigger. And I said, there is a lot more space to the downside, because we were overvaluing the market right now based on a flawed interpretation. And so if you respect the gravity of sort of the change, that will help you. That's why I said, look, my range was 390 to 410 on the SPY. So if you think of that differently, when we open the day around 419, that means that we're going to drop, about 10 points, right? That is substantial. There's no more bias to the upside. And if it's moving to the upside, you can scalp there. But I accept that. And that's a big thing is within the fund on shorter term trades, I just have to look at things and accept it, because my risk mitigation protocols are not flexible. Well, there is some flex in different strategy, but they are not such that they will be broken because of the way that I feel about something. I have to see something really specific that everybody's missing in order to make an adjustment to risk protocols. But otherwise, it's not happening. The market goes the other way, I close a position, I stop out. That's fine. I could believe whatever I want to believe. That's nice. The idea didn't work, right? It's okay to be wrong. So that's another thing to put in your head about directional bias. Like, It's fine. You can have your expectations and projections and you can trade on them. And when it doesn't work, you have to make an adjustment. And you know what? If you get shaken out and then it runs in your direction, there's strategies for that I've discussed, but that's it. Overall, you're going to be a bigger winner if you do that. And it's just like anything in life. You have to accept things as they are and make decisions and be agile, not be stubborn and say, this is the way it should be. You don't get to say how it should be. I don't get to say how it should be. I react to market data. I just make projections, of course, because it's not like, there's no bias. I heard some donkeys are like, never go into the markets with any bias. A trade idea is a bias. If you have a trade saying, I'm going to take a trade to the upside today, calls or puts, or I'm going to buy or sell something, you're bias. What you don't do is allow that to change your strategy. But if you don't have any bias, that means you don't have any ideas, right? It's kind of like saying, I say, what do you think is going to happen in a sports game? And you tell me who you think is going to win. You immediately have a bias. You can't call out trades without a bias. Every trade call out is a bias. So it's good. It's fine to have, but you just have to respect that the market dictates in the end. Tell me if that helps, Daniel. I want to make sure that I'm helping. Learn to be. What one thing hurts people the most money-wise? The most money-wise. It's an interesting one. So, yeah, people might not like to hear this, but I want to put this out there. I know this will be recorded, and, it is being recorded, and it'll be replayed for people. The one thing, and this is putting not just my fund manager hat on, but my Fortune 50 experience, my life experience as a CEO. I've lived in Vegas. I've lived in New York. I've lived in Canada. Of course, I grew up in Canada. I lived in Austin. I lived in Houston. So I've seen the big cities. I've been around the world. I've had the fancy cars and Vegas. My condo was right on the Strip, right? And I think it was 1,900 square feet. It was, just all the glitz and the glam. But that's Vegas, right? What hurts people the most, and this actually ties into trading because psychology is a really big thing for me. I always study a lot of psychology. I would say it's the keeping up with the Joneses mentality. And it actually bleeds into trading. Like where people chase price. When I constantly say, size appropriately. Don't chase. You guys notice I say that almost every single day. Size appropriately. Don't chase. Because I think this is ingrained in people's minds just from normal life. Like you're saying, hurting people the most money-wise. It's the chasing the Joneses. Keeping up with the Joneses is chasing. People are so used to chasing every day that when they get into trading stocks, they chase price. They size ridiculously. What are you doing when you chase keep up with the Joneses? You're living beyond your means. What are you doing when you're sizing like a lunatic and going YOLO on stocks? You're trying to trade beyond your means. If I take a certain size position, that might be appropriate for me. I'm managing a professional fund. I have years of accumulated capital. That could be 90% of someone else's portfolio. Don't worry what the person beside you is doing, right? It's like keeping up with the Joneses. And it's stuck in people's minds. So I think that it crushes people. When I read the statistics and polls, 61% of people, 73% of people are now living paycheck to paycheck. 61% of those people include those making $200,000 plus per year. Your paycheck to paycheck making $200,000 plus per year. That is insane. And what's crazy, and I know there are people in here listening who maybe don't make $200,000 a year, is most people who get up to that point would still start living paycheck to paycheck. They just tell themselves when they're making less, oh, I wouldn't do that. That person's stupid. It's like you hear it and then you become one, right? You're making $80,000. Like, oh my God, if I made 2.5 times as much money, I made $200,000, I would so not be paycheck to paycheck. And then you get there gradually, and what do you do along the way? Is you adjust up your spending habits, right? You start saying, oh, well, I've waited so long, I deserve this. It drives me crazy. That's everybody's mentality. I've struggled, and I deserve to be here, and I've waited for this, so I'm treating myself. Okay, this is what hurts people the most money-wise, because then there's always this tenuous position. You're always just sort of one issue away from being crushed, having to sell your house, having to liquidate, start dipping into credit cards. Just calm it down. I'm not saying that you have to live, extremely far below your means, but be a lot more reasonable. And I don't just say that. I practice it. I live the way I want to live. Here's the irony. Here's what's funny, actually. You could speak to one group of friends of mine or people who know me personally, and they say, "Oh my God, baller, what a lifestyle. You're living this amazing fantasy life." Okay, it's not a fantasy life. I worked for it. And you could speak to another half of my cohorts, maybe some friends and professionals that I work with, and go, "Wow, why do you live like a homeless person?" Right? And it's interesting because it's just perspective. I'm just doing what I want to do, and I don't really care. That's why you guys hear me say I don't care about putting up photos of my cars and watches and all this other nonsense. I don't really like. It's not my attitude, anyways. I don't throw money around. I do things that I think are nice for me and my family and such. But I don't have that lavish, giant ego attitude, right? So it becomes this Jones's perspective. Like literally, it's an interesting case to me because it's just one half are like, you're like a homeless guy. And another half are like, oh my God, must be nice to live this, baller lottery lifestyle. And I just tune out noise on both sides because I'm not trying to chase the Joneses. I'm not, really, I just do what I find comfortable, right? When I'm at home, I don't get all dressed up. I don't care about jewelry because, usually I'm typing on a computer, so it's annoying to have a watch on. That's why I'm like, don't really care. And if I did, wearing a watch all the time, I don't know, a couple $100 watch at most. Not putting, it's more like you're making up for inadequacies. I don't want to say anything crude, but if you have to start flashing your watch, be like, I have a $15,000 watch. Be like, all right, you're stupid and you're insecure. What do you want me to tell you? I'll take that money. I'll give it to a charity before then. So yeah, what hurts people the most money-wise is keeping up with the Joneses. Your friend gets a new iPhone, you got to get an iPhone. You got the iPhone 10, someone else has the iPhone 11. You convince yourself that slightly better night photos is worth the $1,000 upgrade, even though that doesn't make sense to your life. All that sort of thing is just absolute insanity. Your car is perfectly fine, but somebody else's car that is nicer than yours, and your friends have a different car, so you got to get a big one. You have a 2,000 square foot house, your friend gets a pool. I need a pool. Just, it's so crazy, right? So like I said, half the people who know me think that I'm living, ask me why I'm living like a poor person. It's like, what's wrong with you? You could live such a better lifestyle. You could do so much more. And the other half are, oh my God, you should be on MTV. What's the name of that show on MTV? MTV Cribs? Yeah. So, but again, it's perspective, and just stay within your means, and you get to a point where you feel comfortable and just consider things. Do you really need to do something? You need to live a certain way? Is it more important to just build your capital? It's best I can help you. Thoughts on selling options current market? Yeah. Curtis, if you know how, it's lucrative, and I like to use that as an adjunct to our existing strategies to generate some additional income. Your aggression level, there's strategy to how aggressive you should be. But yeah, definitely something that makes sense. Key difference, yeah, pain coming to households and businesses. Yeah. And he closed discussing Volcker. The main thing that I think people missed was he talked about sticking inflation. People hear all the top line things like the Fed's going to force the rate and there's pain coming. People can ignore that because it's like, yeah, why would there be pain coming? The moment he narrowed in on sticking inflation, which is what I've been talking about for so long, right? Again, no hearsay. Go look at my posts where I keep saying, even with inflation coming down, here's the target, here's where we are. And I've said, we're not going to get a freak out over inflation efforts. We're going to get a freak out when we see that things aren't working and the feds aren't aggressive enough, well, based on their system, and we have sticking inflation that isn't going away. Then it's panic mode. Once he addressed that and said, we cannot allow for sticking inflation. We cannot allow for inflation to become entrenched. That put the market into fear because there's a big difference. That takes the market from thinking what we're doing is working, this is transient, we're going to have a pivot, we're going to decrease rates quickly. If the feds are concerned or addressing entrenched inflation, that tells you the foot does not come off the gas until we hit terminal rate. And everybody thought it might sooner. So that's what people missed. That's what I cued in on because that's what I've been talking about for months. And again, if you're new, go look at my feed. I've said it over and over like a broken record, but there's a reason I've been a broken record because that was the key item. And the moment he said it, hit that talking point that I've been shouting over and over, institutions panic. So how do I know that? Because I know that's the concern of institutions. I work with institutions. I am on the institutional side. That is the big concern, because that tells you what the Fed's true intentions are. If they pivot from now, yeah, this roller coaster will continue, but we're not seeing that in the economic numbers. So no, entrenched inflation put the fear of God into everybody, at least in terms of Fed policy, because there's no pivoting. We'll hike right into a recession, which we've never done. So we haven't even done, like where we are right now, this is uncharted territory. 2 straight quarters of economic contraction, and we're still hiking. Yeah, that's a new thing. But that was the big concern, that this might become entrenched, or that the Feds are recognizing they feel it has the high potential to become entrenched if they don't keep their foot on the gas. That almost, if you take them at their word, there's no misinterpreting. That means we are not backing off for a long time, or until we get to pretty far along. Okay, so let's see here. I was losing my place here because Google auto scrolls. Let's see. Your tweets have been extra spicy. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have attitude towards politicians and such. I made my living honestly, right? And I'll address that. The amount of dumb comments, and just by the way, thanks guys, but if someone says something dumb, don't bother arguing with them. I will block them. Like if you just come in and say something stupid, like somebody was getting angry at me being like, you should explain to people that these trades are intended to be day trades. I said, you should read my feed. He's like, oh, I did read your feed. I said, no, you didn't, because we talk about that. I've even recorded videos. And just he kept trying to go on, just like, and people always try to go on because they see it, they're like, oh, blue check mark, big following. I'm going to puff up my chest and feel like I accomplished something by having a useless discussion. Whereas to me, there needs to be good faith. Read up. So I'll be spicy with those people. And yeah, politicians. I mean, I make my living earnestly. I don't. I built everything from the ground up. I had immigrant parents. We didn't have much at all growing up, and but they focused on, said, make sure you get your education, and you'll be very successful. And just stay focused. Don't get distracted by dumb things. So I don't really have a lot of respect for politicians who create problems. Politicians are like the story of a bad mechanic. You take your car in, they do damage to it, and then they charge you for it, and they go, oh, we found a hole in the exhaust and a pinhole here and this and that. They destroy things, and then they're like, hey, elect me so I could fix the stuff that me and the other people destroyed. And then they find good ways to point fingers at each other. Like the student loans thing, that is done to point fingers. Probably gets shot down in court, and then when it gets shot down in court, one side will say, we tried to give it to you, and they shot it down. And the other side will say it's unfair, and it's just something for them to squabble and get votes on. But where do I get ticked off? I'm like, yeah, okay, you can talk about this $10,000. Or we could talk about how you guaranteed loans and sent tuition to an astronomical level, right? We wouldn't have to worry about getting loans forgiven if tuition was a reasonable price. But that's what scammers do. Vivek Palsora, yeah, I think I touched on that, where we're going in the markets right now. Bonds market usually seem to have things priced in. I'll say that they have a good feel on it. The bonds market coming into this was actually kind of flat, so it made sense. Commodities, long-term strategy, maybe just 1,000-foot breakdown. So I do have somebody on my team that specializes in the commodity side. I'm not an expert, but there are certain ones that I keep an eye on. Gold and silver, actually, believe it or not, aren't as interesting to me. Wheat, corn, yeah, I think a lot of that's going to be trouble. I think there's more scarcity. I think we had some challenges this year with the crops and also harvests. Russia being an issue as well there. So we'll see. If it depends on if there's movement with Russia, but even still, I think that scarcity increases. Yeah. In the wheel strategy, no, Ben, and thank you. Sorry, just no to the question with the wheel strategy. I have a SPY 372. This expires down 50%. Market will go down. So selling cut losses, or am I okay to hang on? I can't give specific advice on a specific trade like that, but just my idea, sky chicken. It really 372 on the SPY, and it's not that far out of the money. I have a hard time with long term. I do them sometimes, in January that was a thing, but I have a difficult time with the long term SPY and QQQ options because they're so volatile. Just an idea. Maybe I'd have to look at the theta and the specifics of the contract. I would not get down 50%. So in the first place, I don't like that. I would have found a different entry. But I think you might be better off with some of the inverse funds, or just going really, really deep in the money, because I just don't like that extrinsic premium risked on those long-term SPY and QQQ. Hyper volatile. No real focus or thoughts on Bed Bath & Beyond and Zach Milburn. Yeah, it's not something that's high on our radar despite what was happening. Yeah, we don't chase that kind of stuff. I mean, I look at it and I understand what's going on in the market, and particularly I put a little bit more time than I probably should, just so I can help people in retail have an idea what's happening. But yeah, that's been an absolute roller coaster of volatility. Not something that we're focused on right now, not high on our radar. Damlin, do you think Zuckerberg's interview with Joe Rogan helped the PR investing behavior of the street? You know what's funny is I haven't taken it in. Joe Rogan's he's a fantastic interviewer, believe it or not, even though he's all these other things so you wouldn't think of. He's really good with his interviews. I haven't seen the Zuckerberg interview. I know I probably should. I don't think it'll be a big change. I also Rogan's choices on interviews. I think that he should have interviewed former President Trump, because his whole thing is, I like to interview people. His premise has always been, I don't try to help anybody. I'm not about that. I'm not biased. I bring on people I disagree with completely and people I agree with. There's no bias. I'm not here to help people. I just believe in a long form discussion where you can get the truth, we can get details out, and then you make your own decision. I'm a big fan of that approach. But then he came out and said, I'm not having former President Trump on because I don't want to help him. So I said, well, that kind of goes against your entire premise that you've always stood on. That's a betrayal of your audience. Bring on anybody. You bring on Alex Jones. Bring on, and who I'm not saying I agree or disagree with. I don't like to get into political viewpoints of my own. But I just said, you just betrayed everything that you stood for, of like, you'll bring people on you agree or disagree with, just to, you'll expose the liars and the cons and the bad guys, and also people are honest. But then once you say, no, when I bring people on, it's to help them, I was like, okay, well, you should have disclosed that before. It's a big loss of trust there. And I didn't know that was his approach, but it seemed like he jumped on it. But I'm sure he's also under a lot of, he's been capitulating more and more to pressure. So I think I'd have to listen to the Zuckerberg interview, but Damlin, they've just had a hard time expressing their vision to investors, and I don't see how Zuckerberg will have changed that, because I've listened to enough of the conference calls, listened to their guidance, give them an opportunity to speak. So yeah, maybe this was a commercial, and Joe just thought, hey, cool guy to have on. I don't know. I'm not sure how that could really help them, but I think the actual business mechanics need to be better at this point, because they've had so many opportunities to explain themselves. What other indicators would you use with RVOL? I don't really use other indicators, Andrea, and I use my analysis on those specific companies, the price action that we've seen over the last few days, where we think they're going with any news, where they are relative to the target and modeling that we have. Then we combine that with pressures on the macroeconomy. That's more of it. Not the sweatpants. Yeah, they're really nice ones. I don't know if you guys know who Sidney Crosby is, but they're like these signature Sidney Crosby sweatpants, and I got in trouble for them. Looking back, I really don't care. I mean, my performance speaks for itself. You can't put me in that many meetings, not let me wear my sweatpants. Scalping underlying on your day trade callouts. Am I putting more comfortable scalping the underlying on your day trades? Am I putting myself at a disadvantage versus typical? Yeah, Dylan. Yeah, I mean, if you're going these stupid things. If what you're going to do is use the underlying, then I wouldn't want to say you're putting yourself at a disadvantage specifically by using the underlying, but you're not leveraging capital, right? So you're safer, but exponentially different results, right? So it's just something to consider. Depends on your risk profile. What you could do is you could do that, and you could do some, or you can go deeper into the money on the day trade callouts if you're looking for a little bit more safety. It just depends on why you're doing that. What's going on, Troutster? Shout out. There you go. I don't know how else to do the shout out, but hopefully is that sufficient? What are your thoughts on obtaining the CFA? Zach Milburn. Two things. Some of the most nauseating headbanging against the wall conversations I've had are with CFAs. Just because a lot of them try to feel like they're not happy with their lives, and they come in and try to argue with me on my feed or just engage. But if you want to work in finance, absolutely, Zach, that is one. Does that mean you're going to be a successful fund manager or fund manager at all? No, I've had a lot of CFAs apply, and there's one thing to have classroom theory, another thing to be capable, and then one thing is knowledge, and applied specific knowledge is what's going to make you successful in this world and economy, in my opinion. But if I was to say there was one thing to do to, I don't want to say guarantee, but give yourself a very good chance of having a well-paid position and working in finance, CFA level 3. And that's not easy either. I will add that. And anybody who's hearing that thinking, oh, cool, let me go sign up. No, it's not that easy. You test against other people around the world when you do it. Only the certain people of top X percentage get through, and then the same thing happens for level 2, and the same thing happens for level 3. I believe you still need a university or college degree to even attempt to write it. It's challenging. There's a lot of work to do, and you got to spend money on it. But yeah, Zach, I mean, if you want to give yourself almost a certainty of having a pretty good paying job, and again, depends on what your ideas are. If you're kind of like, hey, I want to make $1 million a year, no, you're not getting hired for that. There's very few jobs that actually pay salary of $1 million a year. But if you want to be able to get yourself in the finance space, get to level 3. That's no fun, but if you were going to do it all the way, be a CFA level 3. So let me see. What do you think about Europe energy problem? How will it affect the market? I think that, and it's from Abdullah Osama, I think that hasn't played out fully. And that's an ugly situation I've been talking about for a while. About 7 months ago or 8 months ago, I put up a tweet saying, look, you're starting to have energy issues. We're seeing what's happened in Russia, and it's spilling out. And when Germany was decommissioning their last 2 nuclear plants, I said, look, when you take your energy strategy advice from children, this is what happens. Things turn into chaos. And I forget her name. There's the Grumpy Thunger. What's the little kid there? He's very vocal. It's great. If you're advocating for change of climate change, all that sort of thing, and that's something that you're focused on, okay, there's sustainable development, right? Kind of like saying, okay, well, to help climate change, let's stop using all cars immediately tomorrow, period. No one but electric vehicle users. Okay, maybe we'll have a great impact on climate change, and the world will go to chaos, and people will start doing crazy things. There's a sustainable transition. And I think there was one politician, I don't want to name her, makes my eyes roll back into my head so hard that I worry they'll get stuck, said something like we need to move to, and this is just my point, that there's not just furus, there's a lot of just morons everywhere who love to speak, hate to think. And that's what I'm hard about with people come on the feed and they start leaving posts. I'll say, hey, you should probably read my feed, or hey, act in good faith. A problem with the world in general is everybody's so excited to speak and get attention for what they have to say, but they won't put a fraction of that energy into developing the thought. Like, you'll sit and write a 5-minute tweet, but you won't take 10 seconds to check and see if it's accurate or appropriate. So I think one of them said something along the lines of we need to get the Earth to a zero carbon level. Zero carbon in the atmosphere, zero carbon on the Earth. 0% to all carbon. And I remember looking at that thinking, Jesus, help me. How are you elected? How do you tie your shoelaces in the morning? We'd all be dead. We're carbon-based life forms. We would all be dead if there was zero carbon in the atmosphere. So Abdullah Osama, I think that we've got a lot of crazy people who are affecting policy. We're taking cues from children who protest and not doing things sustainably. They're shutting down their decommissioning their nuclear plants. I think it's going to be chaos. How will it affect the markets? I think it's a negative drag on the markets because it's going to hammer the European markets and push them into a recession. The recession is going to be worse than most expected. People are going to be paying absurd amounts on their bills. I think UK just announced that this morning. I've been saying this for a while. It's terrible. It's terrible. And when, you let children set policy, and I don't just mean physical children like the thumper kid. I'm going to call her Thumper till someone corrects me. Or the donkey politician. When you listen to people who are just dumb, but they have a way of attracting others and they have a big following, kind of like Furu style, you run into trouble. But when you maybe take some of that sentiment, which is fine, and say, hey, this is the direction we need to go in to affect climate change, or whether you're for that or not, and you do something sustainable, and you say, hey, we need to act immediately, but we have to look at what is sustainable development. You look to the needs of the future without compromising the needs of the present. And it's just, Europe is in chaos. So good luck to Europe. I find myself saying it a lot. Let's see here. Frank's at a detail on bias. No problem, Danya. Cool. Thanks, Roger. I was trying to catch bounces. Yeah. Versus respecting the larger trend. Yeah, I see that. N8DO6D069. Now you're talking my language. Start writing to me in binary code and it'll be a lot more comfortable. Can you recommend any books that have helped you or that you might be reading now? Finance-wise, no, because you can get all that data online. Like things that I enjoyed. I've read Jim Cramer's books way back in the day, but it was more just his autobiography. Same thing with Peter Lynch and How to Beat the Street, and that was fun. But there are no books that actually helped my trading. Maybe some textbooks and when I was doing my licensing and all that. But weren't, because we get different iterations of things, right? Even that isn't as efficient as explanations now on how to understand the markets. But non-stock trading, yeah, there's tons of books and podcasts to listen to. But I think you're talking about stocks. But yeah, most what I read is not stock related. I'm in front of screens all day long in meetings and calls, endless calls. But in my personal time, as for development, so that I could be a better trader, so that I could be a better investor, so I could be hopefully a better person, it's all non-stock related books. Let me see here. Help me to stop caring about being right, only care about stick to risk management, absolutely. 200K living paycheck is insane. Yeah. And that is 61% of people making 200K plus per year are living paycheck to paycheck. Like, how obsessed are they with not feeling as though they're not keeping up with their neighbors? You know what? I don't want to keep up with the Joneses, because this is a good one for everybody to remember. If the Joneses are all living 60 paycheck to paycheck, which the majority of Americans are, I don't want to be like you. How's that? And I'm asked, why don't you do things the way other people do it? Because I don't want to be like them, right? Why don't you put up a Discord and put calls and puts? I don't want to be like them. That'll be a big step backwards. That's not how professionals behave. Why don't you approach us like everybody else who's doing the markets? That's a huge thing for the market, is not caring. If you have a personality type where you don't care what other people are doing, you're so much better off in the markets, because you won't get as frazzled by what you see. You'll focus on what's underlying. Same thing in society. I don't care what other people are doing. Dye your hair whatever color you want, spend your money on a $50,000 watch, sleep upside down. I don't know what all the trends are. I don't care. They don't drive me, right? Because I don't want to be like you, I'll put it that way. I have a vision of what I want to do and what I want to achieve, and I focus on that. And if I focus on anything else, then it distracts me from what I'm trying to do. And I don't care about your dream, your ideas, your trends, whatever, media has brainwashed anybody else into thinking. I care what I'm focused on. So that's a big thing about, managing money. Stop caring what other people are doing. Focus on what your thing is and what you actually care about, what you want to do. And then you'll get to it. Let's see here. FinTwit's hard to filter out. You see so many big crazy gains, hard to stay. Yeah, Danya. So, okay. So let's say, I love Unusual Wiz. I like them. It's good company. The owner's, he seems cool. He's a software, he's not a stock guy at all, by the way. He's a software engineer. I hope I didn't get that wrong. I remember we talked about it, which is really cool. That's how he has such a great platform, software engineer. So just think of that as an example. 700 80,000, almost 800,000 people follow Unusual Whales, right? Okay. So you see some retweets, and as you should retweet people. It's good for your business. It puts some shine on people. But again, you're seeing all this crazy stuff on FinTwit. Yeah, 800,000 people following an account, maybe 40 or 50,000 of them trading in a day, maybe, let's say, only 1%. That means 8,000 people trading. You're going to get some good results, even if it's pure luck, stupidity, anything, right? So it's just one of those things. And they could be trading anything. It's not like there's call-outs. I'm just using Unusual Whales as an example because it's such a big account. But when you're looking around online, like, who cares? I don't know how people got that. A lot of them are guesswork. A lot of people that you see don't get retweeted forever until way later on because it was up one day and down another day. You can't worry about that nonsense. I don't ever worry about that. Look, let me ask you, do you think any of the successful fund managers or wealthy people, find whoever you like, I don't know who it is. I actually don't pay attention to really any of them. Kathy Wood, maybe it inspires someone. Maybe Warren Buffett. Maybe, I don't know, Kevin O'Leary. Anybody, right? Do you think they go on Twitter and go, oh my God, somebody got like 800% lotto. We're doing it all wrong here at our multi-billion-dollar fund. I don't look at that and think, I gotta change my life. I've had such a horrible story. You know, it's Fortune 50 at 24. God, I did it wrong. I was a CEO in 29. You know, you guys know my accolades. Not here to give my own pat on the back or with my life story. But my point is, the reason that I'm like that and the reason those people are like that is I don't give a damn about some nonsense. Yeah, there's going to be lucky people. I know that. I don't care, right? I don't look for people who just randomly hit it. So, yeah, tune the noise out, right? Out of hundreds of thousands of people, yes. Hell, if I told you pick 20 stocks tomorrow and just have random free trades and we're just going to take your best one, you just go like, okay, I'm going to do calls here and puts there. And why would you do calls and puts? Because that's the Furu scam, because you know one's going to hit. So I ignore all that kind of nonsense. I'm like, all right. And sometimes I've reviewed those trades and I've been like, wow, you bought in here and we fell all the way here before running up here where you made your money. That means you have absolutely no risk management. You will eventually get destroyed, right? Because that means you're going in heavy and allowing it to get down to like 60% down, and then you skyrocket and you're up like 300%. Okay, well, one day you're just going to keep rolling with this giant position size. Okay, let's say you turn your 10,000 into 50,000, your 50,000 into 200,000 on a 400% run, and your 200,000 into $1 million. Okay, one day you're not going to sell. You're going to be down 90%. It's going to rally. It's not going to rally, and your million's going to turn into like 100,000 at best, and it's going to keep happening because you're going to get torched. So who cares what lotto players are doing, right? That's not how investors work. Live how you want to live. My dream is to be financially stable, not live lavishly, and now I'm close to paying off my mortgage. So I'm happy. Yeah, exactly. Live how you want to live, right? Who saw that video on Twitter of all car dealerships with employees with $1,500 monthly payments? I didn't see that. No, I haven't seen that. You could tag me. Can't even imagine you being on MTV Cribs. No, I usually don't. Not even big on a lot of the interviews. I'll do some fun Q&A here, where you could just say, ask me anything. But my life is kind of boring, and that's, like I said, that's why I have colleagues who are like, geez, you're living like you're homeless. And other people are like, oh my God, you're living like you're in Hollywood. It's like, what's your perspective, right? In finance, I know some, and my colleagues are some very wealthy people. They have better insight into sort of my finances, just as not because I ever disclosed to anybody, but just because they kind of figured out because we were investing together and working together. And in some ways they pay me. My money comes from services rendered to them, and we share in different funds. And then, and so they're like, oh, you walk around pretending to be homeless. I'm like, well, I'm comfortable. I don't know. I do what I'd like to do. Again, and other people are like, hey, you live in a Hollywood lifestyle. So, I haven't seen that commercial, Luke. That'll be interesting to see. Mete Calderon, best books to understand the economy. I would, I don't want to send you like macroeconomics textbooks. and they don't discuss it enough. I don't know of a specific book. Like I said, I think you're better served to look at all the economic markers and then dig deep to understand what they mean and why, right? When you look at CPI, understand it. What is that? Consumer Price Index, right? What does that mean? It means things cost more. Start to break it down, bifurcate it, look at the different areas. Is it such that we only have specific areas? Look at the full breakdown, Maître Calderon. Like do the boring work. I look at that. I don't just look at the top line, and I tell everybody, I look at top line, I look at core, then I look at a breakdown. Are there certain elements that are inflating the overall number? So are we just seeing, let's say used cars are so much higher that's pulling everything up? Is there something that's deflationary in here that isn't significant? And then you can just even reason that and say, this is how it impacts the economy. So for example, they try to carve out food and energy, saying that these are volatile items, right? Here's the problem with that, and I agree they are volatile. Those are the things that people have to pay for. Food, shelter, energy, all right? Those are your staples. Those are your top costs. The number one thing a person pays for on a regular month, on average, is shelter. So to say, we disclude that. Well, it's like, okay, you can disclude it, and I understand why, because you're looking at things balancing out in the future, hopefully, because they typically have, to where this will sort of fall in line, and then you look at what you can control. But you still have to recognize it because it is a massive pressure economically. So instead of books, I would just look at the data, but I would dig a little bit deeper. Yeah. What do you do most, investing or trading? For investing, how do you pick stocks? From Madhukar. I do most investing, right? I'm paid as a fund manager. We look to invest, but we pivot our strategy based on market conditions. And so you heard me, or you read me say, look, our strategy has changed, and I can share that. I don't share things that could be problematic or represent even a smidgen of a conflict of interest. So I was very clear with my partners, and those my first obligations are to be responsible to my stakeholders, and I won't ever share anything that could come anywhere near a conflict of interest. But I will share overarching strategies and ideas and sentiments and that sort of thing I'm comfortable with, provided it's done appropriately. So if there's something where we just did it within the fund and I'm kind of given the okay to share it, I may not share it immediately. It may be a 24, 48 hour lag, just respectfully. But one of the things I said is we pivoted from investing long-term to trading the moves. And again, this isn't hindsight. Now you understand. I said I'm trading the moves because I don't trust this move up. And look at what this move up yielded, right? So I'll kind of scale back here. Let's go 180 days, 4 hours. Okay. So, we're near the lows. I start talking about trading moves. I feel like it's tenuous, right? I think we're around here. Where's it at? Where's July 26th? This one Powell spoke and we saw some of our earnings. Let's just say around here, I started saying we're trading moves. Yeah, we like these moves. We're going to take profits off. I talked about AMD, which I believe in as a company in the future. The timing is odd, so we took profits there. We took profits on XOM and re-entered. And XOM is something I've called out to insiders multiple times, $72, $74, and $76 in the 80s and in the upper 80s. And it's done phenomenally. But we take profits and we re-enter, and then look what happened to that move. Down, down. This was the week, just some risk being taken off, and then here we are, correcting. So, yeah, far more of the time, if you look at my career on a macro perspective or what I do, investing, 80, 90% trades, 10, 20%. But it depends on the circumstances. Right now, I'm doing more what I call trading. We're trading the moves as opposed to holding specific positions with some very specific exceptions. So, yeah, good question. Hopefully that answers your question. A lot of my capital came from a single tweet you made before starting Insiders talk about bearish position. I listened and took a long-term bearish position and been good since. I am so happy to hear that. I honestly am. I'm really, really happy to hear people being in a better place financially, and that makes me really happy. Okay. What are your thoughts on the energy problem? What do you think about Oxy? Yeah, Oxy's a good stock. We moved a little bit of our XOM position into Oxy. Like I said, timing is everything. Energy problem, I think I touched on that for Europe. It's a problem. It's a big problem. It's a manufactured problem because we don't need to be doing this. It's the craziest. If you guys want to think of how dirty politicians are and how it affects the markets, I could put this in a way where your politics doesn't matter. And we're in a time where, sadly, people are just, you live as the puppet of politicians. They just tell people what to think, and everybody draws political lines and hates each other because they disagree. But here's a way that doesn't matter what side you're on is. Okay, so it comes to the energy problem. We stop domestic production. We shut off the TPP, Trans-Pacific Pipeline. Stop fracking. We lose our energy independence. This is a political decision, right? We rely on Europe. Here's what's crazy about that, because people will say, well, it's for climate change purposes, right? No, our consumption didn't change. We're still burning just as many fossil fuels. Guess what we're doing now? So this doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, right or left or whatever nonsense. Now, the only difference is we get our oil, we get our fossil fuels from overseas. So instead of doing it domestically, let's say in Texas, and then we send it from Texas over to Georgia, now we go overseas where their protocols are far more lax and far less environmentally friendly, because we have the highest standards in the world, right? Everybody else tends to get away with murder. You just go look and see what China and India does, right? So the refining and the extracting process are far less environmentally friendly with carbon capture, all that. So immediately we're doing worse. We're not doing better by being like, yay, we shut down domestic production. That's a win for climate change. No, it's a loss, because we're still going to get the same production on the other side of the world. It's one planet. Whether they're doing it or we're doing it, it's still contributing to carbon, right? Carbon emissions. So now we get it from a place that doesn't care about environmental regulations. Then you take it, put it on a truck, drive it to a tanker, which sails across the ocean, polluting the entire way, then drops it off in the US. Then we take it and drive it all out to distribute it through the United States. That is exponentially worse for the environment, because of just the transportation, just the fact that their refining and extracting processes are dirtier. Then you have the transportation to the port. Then you have the transportation over the water. Look how much is being exported. It's a self-inflicted wound. And I think maybe because just some people who don't read in are like, yay, we did a good political thing for climate change. No, you just won some votes because you get people thinking that. Plus, forget the economic impact. I was only talking how it's worse for the environment. So it doesn't matter what political side you're on. It's just worse for everybody. So it's like, it's worse for the environment, right? Worse for climate change. We went from environmental to climate, whatever you want to talk about. Same idea. Way worse there. And it's exponentially more important. Nobody wins, everybody loses. So when we're talking about energy, we'll continue to be in a tough place until things change, and then the bragging of it's gone down for 40 days. Like, oh, cool. Is it still exponentially higher than it was because we're not energy independent? Okay, why don't you celebrate? That's like someone hitting you over the head with a, wooden board every day, 10 times a day, and then bragging and being like, we've only hit you over the head twice a day for the last week, and we are proud of the significant changes we've made to help the lives of Americans. Like, you're still hitting me in the head twice a day with a wooden board. I'm pretty sure I get a concussion each time, right? You get the idea. It's crazy how we've been finessed into this, but that's where we are energy-wise, and I don't see any reprieve unless some major changes are made, or maybe there's changes made in Russia, but that's where it is right now. Heartburn after taking 400 car payment when I got my first newish car. Okay. Thoughts on Oxy, etc. I'm absolutely amazed how you pick your trigger points. Can you speak to your arrive such triggers? Quantum, just in general, I don't expect to give away your secrets. Quan, yeah, I actually have a video that talks a lot about that. Look into my live videos. You won't see them if you first go to my YouTube channel, but if you actually click on the one that says live, so there's a filter. It says videos, and then you click down, it says show all videos or show live videos. You'll see some of my live videos. I talk about that. Identify supply and demand zones for trading, how to obvious hedges on unusual oils. Vega, yeah, that'll be separate unusual oils videos. And I do have some of those. Okay, Sky Chicken, no problem. Is that like crane? What was it? Ribeye in the sky, like certain cranes in Texas. Andrea Lynn, as individuals, how can we combat inflation? The government keeps spending, basically printing more money. This is true. We can't control their spending. Kind of. You can sort of vote for one crazy person or another. We're almost better off in gridlock, so no one can do anything. They got us in this position. How do we fight it? Well, the first, Andrea, so the first important thing is to recognize the rate of inflation and to recognize the position that you're in. Like what are you losing at what pace? Obviously, living within your means is extremely important. Don't waste money. I think smart investments, disciplined investing is a good idea. Looking at different opportunities. If you guys want to talk about different business opportunities, I mean, you've got a guy not only was I a CEO, not only a fund manager and Fortune 50, I have grown my own businesses. We don't just acquire businesses, and we do acquire businesses. We've cooled down with that. We specifically focus on the e-commerce space. I've started multiple businesses and sold them. We had a business in 2017. We started in 2017, around May, sporting equipment. And in 18 months, we did top line revenue of $2.1 million and sold that company. I think I was recognized because the software we used was ClickFunnels. Yeah, we were recognized as their 2Com Club members. And that was just a side project for me. So we've grown a lot of businesses. It depends on, Andrea, unfortunately, it comes down to cutting costs, growing capital. Growing capital you could do through trading in the markets, but I would hope everybody approaches that very carefully, right? Never approach the markets in a rush, and I think most people do. Most people get into trading and they say things like, "Hey, I think it's reasonable. All I want to do is make $500 a week. That's my goal." Don't set goals. Set a goal. Don't set money goals. Set a goal of just becoming better and understanding more, and then, incrementally easing in. Maybe you'll make $1,900 one week. Maybe you'll make $250 the next week, but probably won't make anything for a little while. If you're hitting it right off the beginning, making money quickly, you're lucky, and you're probably going to lose that plus more. So just be careful. And you fight it through smart business decisions. There's also other business decisions you could look at as what you could do, side gigs, all that sort of thing. I think if you are somebody in a contracting space, I've said this to a few people, look at Upwork.com. There's also gigs you could do on things like Fiverr and all that sort of thing. And we've done that sort of for consulting and such. So ideas on Baba, good news. But Jackson Hole. TJ, I'd like to wait to get a little bit more detail and hear more in terms of what we're going to do with trade and what some of the changes are going to be. I want to get a little bit more on Baba, but it's Jackson Hole's going to hurt it because, of course, even with improvements to U.S.-China trade, if we're seeing a consumer recession on the horizon, a weakness and a recession in the economy, then Baba's going to get crushed, right? Because it's consumer discretionaries. I like Rogan, but since the move to Spotify changed the format some, I think he's just capitulated to pressure. Everybody could pretend and say that they don't, but until we just respect this idea of, hey, free speech, just have bigger conversations, let people have their say, then things won't change. And right now, people are being persecuted, right? Like we're attacking people for speech. So it sounds cool at first because you get to silence people you don't like. It's always fun. But you're giving away a lot of power to people who have shown themselves to be corrupt. You want to give them more power? The world's in a great place, right? Obviously, our politicians have done so well. Let's give them more. What's your opinion on Tesla after the split and with the payments company's policy? Expect better opportunities coming. John Rivera. I'm long in Tesla, but I purchased Tesla a very long time ago, and we kept adding to our position. I'm not adding to my position right now in Tesla. And I think Tesla will suffer alongside with the economy, but I like what I like some of their ideas for the future. I think they're really cool. I think in September we're going to get our first look at Optimus, is it? The robot? Very curious about that. Any formulas or tips from taking yourself from operator to owner? It's going to sound like calls and puts. Jason Cardinal. Don't overstaff, but don't understaff, right? Don't overstaff so that you don't get to the point of bloat where you're paying people to do redundant tasks and you're losing productivity, right? So if you hire like 5 people and they're doing you're getting 10% more performance, productivity than you were with 2 people, you've gone over. Don't underhire. I've worked with people, I know people, and this is one of the quick things that gets me away from people, is where they get a little too cheap, where they don't want to pay anybody. And then you're doing everything and running yourself rampant and you can't scale. Right? So you just be very careful with your hiring. Make sure that you have a clear business plan with projections, that you know what your costs are going to be, what your monthly costs are going to be. Try to project where you might go in the future with the economy. Big part of that is also understanding your consumers. So for me to say it in a very general fashion, of course, the economy goes down, you go down, but you could be in the luxury space or a space that is insulated from the economy. Try to understand how you would work in different scenarios. And maybe undershoot on your projections. I think a lot of people overshoot their projections, right? Then also recognize that timing is important, because if you're taking loans as a business operator, timing is very important. Timing is important in terms of the economy, but also not just from a consumer standpoint, but also understanding what your loan costs are going to be. It could be that you're interested in doing it, but now, and it could be a good idea that now's not time. TK Crow, Greta Thunberg. Thunberg or Thunberg? Yeah, that sounds right. Thunberg. Yeah, it is Thunberg. That sounded right once you said it. Yeah, okay. Or something. Yeah, Andrea Lynn, thank you. I know exactly what politician you're talking about. Yeah, I know exactly which one too. I don't like to repeat their names. Even that's beneath me. And I know that you think, oh, politicians are bigger than you. I understand. That's true. But I also feel like watching TMZ and celebrity stuff is beneath me. Doesn't mean that I'm more popular than them. It just means I'd feel dumb to waste my time caring about their lives when I have things to do in my own life. Does that make sense? And on that, just on money trading, you don't need to burn yourself out and focus on how to make more money in business and all that sort of thing 20 hours a day. I spend a lot of time, because it's my personality, and I get stir crazy, and I feel, I've obsessed. I think I've talked about this, and I've had struggles in the past with OCD, particularly when I was younger. So it sounds cool, and everybody's like, oh, that's so cool. I have OCD too. No, you don't. Probably don't. Some of you might. It's not cool. To the point where, like, when I'd walk down the sidewalk, the cracks between the sidewalks? And people will notice I'll do this. If I step on the cracks with my right foot, it'll bother me, and I would stop, and I'd have to adjust to make sure that my left foot stepped on the next crack. That way it would be evened out, because I was obsessive about symmetry, things being symmetrical, and so an imbalance. So I can't step on the right crack, on the crack of the cement with my right foot without like changing my pace to make sure the left one steps on there. And if it ever goes out of balance, I have to rebalance it. That's just one of like a slew of things that would, make me nervous, or not so much nervous, but just like draw my attention and capture my focus. So you don't have to be obsessive, but it, struggling when you're younger also lends to a lot of good performances, because it made me hyper focused at things that I do, because I become obsessive naturally. So it's easier. So that I've obviously, over the years and as I've grown, I've found how to apply that to be very effective with it. And that lends very well to being a fund manager, to working Fortune 50, CEO, all those kind of careers, because you're naturally obsessive. You don't feel like you're missing out. You don't have to put in 20 hours a day. But in the time that you can focus on what your goals are and what you're trying to do and how you're trying to progress. When I hear people say I'm living paycheck to paycheck, those same people, if I asked you about the stock markets, anything about the stock markets, you go, I don't know. Like, okay, tell me about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Tell me about them. Oh man, did you see the trial? She is such a bad person. He is so cool. I love him. He doesn't deserve this. They need to put him in Pirates of the Caribbean, or like bring him back. You know what I mean? They know all the details. They're like, that's amazing. You live in paycheck to paycheck. You're freaked out about inflation. You don't know anything about finance. Can't tell me one thing about what's going on in the markets, or your potential 401k, your investments, your IRA. Nothing about what's going on economically. But you could tell me what Johnny Depp wore to the trial on day 9. You see where the problem is? It's your focus. That's why you're living paycheck to paycheck. It's a big part of it. You could be doing better. Put your focus somewhere else. If you ever want, like, I'm not big on like, I made this quote, but if you ever wanted to quote me on a quote that I've had for years of my own saying, because I've said it so often that my friends joke, it's like, that's your quote. Your focus, your attention is the currency of your life.
Wherever you spend your focus will dictate the ROI, right? Your focus and attention is the currency of your life. If you want to spend it on Johnny Depp and what's going on in his life, and he doesn't care about you or what's going on with yours, he's going to be rich and completely fine no matter what, then okay. But that's the return you're going to get. If you want to spend it on self-improvement, understanding finances, that sort of thing, yeah, doesn't mean that you're going to end up like Warren Buffett, but you'll end up most likely better off than you are, as long as you apply it properly. And it doesn't mean I spent the next 20 hours reading the stock markets and I went all in and lost all my money. Yeah, that's not a good application of your focus. But focus on things that you can improve, whether it's stock markets or business in your own life. Maybe you want to start an Airbnb business. Maybe you want to do some renovations, that sort of thing. Maybe you take a side gig of a hobby that you're good at and put your services up locally, like on a Facebook Marketplace, or, you can always find different ways and different streams of income. But your focus is the currency of your life. Where you spend it, and you could spend it anywhere. That's the cool part. You could spend it playing video games. You could spend it on nonsense, on celebrities, on politicians. You could spend it all day long yelling at the left, yelling at the right. This is my political side. None of them care about you. Your life isn't going to get better. You're just going to feel like you got one off on one of your opponents. So, yeah, big thing about how to spend and what can do better for business. So, let's see here. How did you get your trading license? Mate Calderon, this is going to sound silly, and I'm not trying to be glib or anything, but I took the test. The way that it works is I had a job. I applied to a job with TD. So TD Waterhouse we know them as TD Ameritrade. We're in their software right now. That is the backdrop to this video. I applied to a job, and at the time I had a few certifications in finance that I'd taken in preparation. But I didn't have my trading license just yet, because of course I needed to be endorsed by a broker. So with my university degree in hand and some of my certifications, I applied, and I was given that job contingent upon, taking the tests, right? So in the United States, they're all different around the world. Canada is a Canadian Securities course. United States is Series 7, and so that'll get your initial licenses. Then you get derivatives options specialization license, or Series 4. And of course, you're endorsed by an employer, and you go in sequence. So got the job, took the tests, passed the first one, excelled at my position, was given an opportunity to move into options and derivatives as a specialist, took the test there, passed the test. Yeah, but that's sort of how it went. Do you use Spire as SPX as a reference in trading? Yes. I'm always keeping my eyes on the markets. N8D069, thank you for your response. You're very welcome. Current real estate problems in China, huge devaluation in the yuan caused another lemon movement in the financial. Can they? No. Not like that, Quan Moon. Not in my opinion. No. We're not in that subprime explosive moment. But, this is a but, if we start to see a consumer recession, a jobs recession, if jobs start receding, we see the cuts, we could see the housing market move very quickly, because we're just waiting on capitulation now if that happens. Abdullah Osama, yeah, I have that in the live space where I talk about crypto and everything. Both calls and puts at end of day. It's a flat day, so IV kills instead of both calls and puts were a loss. Yeah, sometimes, but they'll always post an upside and say that's not the case. Plus, I mean, it's intraday, so they can usually catch one day. Missed this. I hope as it gets uploaded. Nick Wade, yep, it'll get uploaded. Refreshing voice on Twitter and YouTube. Thanks for sharing watch list. Oh, thanks. Zay says like refreshing voice. Did I not refresh something? But you meant like refreshing voice. Okay. So I'm gonna just get through these questions, guys, and then we'll wrap up. I know I'm hopefully touching on all the things that we set out to: trading strategies, money making discussions, business, and more. And then maybe I'll do a 5-minute ask me anything. So let's see. Second question about China real estate situation. Impending crash could trigger yeah, Daniel. Yeah, I don't see it like Lehman Bros. We don't have that subprime volcano waiting to erupt. But again, I've explained this in some live spaces. Jobs falling will crush people, right? One thing that makes it such that you can't afford anything, even with inflation, everything else, including your mortgage, lose your job. Particularly with inventory increasing, if we see rent prices cool down, oh yeah, then we're off to the races. I think right now people would rather take financing and mortgage loans against their homes than rent because the renting market is just so weak. Break down the economy. Yeah, I agree. TK Crow. How much, if any, stocks trade in the dark pools affect price? BTD, it's more noise than it is signal when you look at the dark pools. I know people talk about it and they'll look at it in the rears and go, I saw this in the dark pool and this happened. But in terms of affecting change, remember, for every giant, you look at the dark pool and go, oh my God, I saw this $5 million buy, right? It was also a sale. Whereas in the normal markets, we can't tell if it's retail as clearly. Like I have a trained eye, so I can, with some data, and not even always, like sometimes I can say, no, these are the institutions coming in here. It's retail. Dark pool, okay, you had a massive sale, you have a massive buy. It's noise, not a signal. Now, just because you come back and go, oh, and the stock went up, yeah, that's circumstance. You're not reading anything off the dark pool, right? Because if the idea is that I saw a dark pool trade and it was this giant trade and it went to the dark pool for that reason, okay, well, every purchase is a sale, every sale is a purchase, right? Because if $10 million worth in stocks were bought by a company, that means they were sold by someone who had that $10 million position. Okay, so where are you left with? You're left looking at it and just trying to say, oh, this is what it did. Oh my God, I love this feature. It's so helpful. Be careful. Koala Crew. Oh, well, followed by spam. TK Crow. Thanks. Gotta run. Yeah, enjoy. Have a great day. Difference between CPI and core CPI or PCE and core PCE. John Rivera. Yeah. So CPI and core CPI, top line CPI, and I explained this earlier, includes everything, all the volatile items, food, energy, etc. Core CPI does not include that. And it's the same exact concept for personal consumption expenditures. So we look at where people are spending money. So the top line is always going to be higher because it includes those things which have, at this point right now, top line is higher because it includes items which have inflated: gas, rent, shelter, food, and core is going to be lower. So consider core is the most important number, correct? Yes, because that's what the feds work off of, but in terms of impact, so when we're reading the markets, it's more important, yeah. And also it speaks to whether things are sticking or not. And it is true that the top line non-core is more volatile, but the reality is your life, outside of the markets, is based on whatever the CPI is, right? Like, what do you care that it's not I'm just saying, like, to an average American, if you go and gasoline is twice the normal price at the pumps, okay, that's nice that the Fed are calculating core for their decisions on rates. You have to pay twice. So impact your life outside of the markets. Top line, what you pay is what you pay. And even the top line is a sneaky way of calculating. It's worse than they show. For the markets, core is more important, yeah. But again, it's not like they ignored the top line. Yeah, that sends, let's see, just scrolling here, keeping swing trading if the market keeps going down. Yes, I'm going to swing trade with the market going down, yeah. I like clear direction in either direction. I think we'll probably see some consolidation soon. But to Mete Calderon, I like to see clear direction. That helps the swing trades, and we're going to have that for insiders, yeah. Kishore, which stocks or ETFs are good for investment in this market? I'm not opening any long positions right now. So, top 3 ways to make money outside of investing. Okay. Saving money, super boring. Contracting out your services. This is from iGot's questions. Contracting out your services or finding side gigs, right? If you're good at something, you're really good at something, you can make money off doing it. Maybe that's home renovations and repairs. Maybe that's consulting. Maybe that's graphic design. Maybe you do that for a company, but you can also get side gigs for doing that. Contracting out your services will bring in additional revenue. If you are good at something, it is very helpful. Yeah. So, and then another way, if you can get involved in real estate, there's a lot of opportunity. Obviously, right now is a bit of a tricky time. So, be careful with that. But some people are starting doing home in renovation jobs and flipping houses. Again, tricky time to do that right now. Some people are doing Airbnb businesses. Depends on the laws in your state and what you can agree to. But that's That's an interesting one as well. And I think VRBO is coming up and being more competitive as well. And then, if you're not someone who can get involved with real estate, okay, and you don't have specific skills to contract out, okay, then the number 3 top way for you to help grow your money is develop a skill. Your desire is really cool. I understand. You really want to make more money. If this is speaking to anybody specifically, I get you want to make more money. And look, that's why I do the Twitter. And with insiders, I'm guiding everybody to it in a much different way. Your desire is fantastic. Grow your skills. That's what I tell everybody in insiders. We're here. Everybody walks away better traders. And even on Twitter, just the regular Twitter feed, be a better trader. See what I'm doing. Grow your skills. If you don't have a skill that you can sell, grow a skill. Develop a skill. I know that sounds like it sucks, but you should have done it 20 years ago, depending on how old you are, or whatever. You should have done it a long time ago. Okay, you haven't. You should have done it a year or two ago. Okay, you didn't. Start today, so that in 2 years you're not looking back going, oh man, if I had started X skill. Maybe you're good with Photoshop. Maybe you just are really good at taking photos, and you want to do professional photography. My sister, all my sisters. So my sister did that as a side gig. She stopped doing it, but she was really, really good at it. My sister-in-law, well, just call my other sister, she decided to do that, and I was like, yeah, you should do that. And she started doing that, and she has a budding photography business now. But she took the time, she got better, she read up on things, and my brother-in-law, my other brothers, he's doing something similar as well, right? He started just taking videos, going into restaurants, taking these really cool videos and connecting with the community. I'm just giving you guys like one example of someone who said, yeah, I'm not going to just sit here and not have these cool skills. And he started doing it for free, and then restaurants started like recognizing him and saying thanks. And he didn't just take like these sort of low quality, like really high quality, artistic, well edited, and he learned what he had to do on Photoshop and After Effects and all that. He made these awesome videos. So then he started becoming well known. And what happened was people started calling him and saying, hey, we'll pay you, come into our burger joint or restaurant. And he's out in the I always forget, Empire area, Inland Empire, Ontario, California, which is weird because I'm from Ontario, but not that Ontario. He's in that area, and people will call him now for all kinds of jobs. And then they were like, well, would you take videos of this? Would you do the same thing of that? And he became well known on YouTube. He makes a living off doing that now. But at first, he dug in. He did some stuff for free. He took his time. He didn't just say, okay, I'm there. He's constantly trying to get better. And then he's like, oh, maybe I need to get a gimbal. Oh, okay. Before I pay myself, I'll upload. I'll get a different gimbal. Oh, I need a new computer. So, he pings me and says, what kind of computer should I get? I say, well, this will save you a lot of time for exporting videos. Okay, like he's reaching everywhere, trying to get better. So, one sister-in-law started her photography business, and she did all the research, became good at editing in Photoshop, and started selling her services. He started doing the same thing for videos, selling his services, and they both make a living doing that right now. Maybe your thing is you're good at computer coding, just not good enough. Maybe you're good at Photoshop, just not good enough in design. Get better at whatever it is. Maybe it's working with your hands. Maybe it's accounting, and you can do bookkeeping services and start a bookkeeping business. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. If you want to make more money, starting a business doesn't mean that you're going to be a billionaire, right? You can start a business because you feel like you're uncapped. The reason I do work for myself is more like I'm past having a boss, but I have more flexibility and there's no ceiling on it. So it could just be for some revenue, could be to really get ahead. So hopefully that inspires a few. They just figure out what it is. And again, I just gave a couple examples. It could be you're good at installing tile, but you've only ever done it at your house. Okay, start doing it for other people, right? There's a high demand for labor services. There's a high demand for consulting. Cheap bookkeeper, keep someone's books on the month, register, get set up. There's so many things you can do. Just most people have like skills that are almost there, just a little bit better, and start putting it out there. And then you'll have a new stream of revenue. The more I learn, okay, don't know why people think it's cool having any form of OCD. Yeah, no, it's not cool and fun. But again, I use it as a strength. I don't think any sort of issue like that is fun. But you can use them to your advantage, in my opinion. You could turn any weakness into like, this is my power. Love the quote, and it's the best advice you could ever give. It's so true. Thank you. Thanks, Andrea. Side gig, selling merch with PT quotes. LKTN. Yeah, you can sell merch with my quotes. You all have my permission to do that. I don't want to make $1 from it. Go crush it. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and time. Thank you, Cecilia. Sadly, got to go meet with design team and other deliverables. We'll watch reply. Have a great one, Peter. Thanks, I got questions. Thank you. Have a great meeting. What's your opinion on supply and demand strategies? Yeah, I mean, it's obviously very important. It drives the economy. We've talked about that a little bit. That's why I constantly talk about how the supply side is critical, and we can't just legislate that with a pen and create more stuff. You can only throttle demand. Scotty, a macro perspective, yes. On a micro perspective, that's very challenging. What do you think about bonds? We are invested in some bonds, made together wrong, but that's an entirely different strategy. But I like to watch the bond market closely and see what's going on, also bond rates. I think that's very important. How to read the tape? Don't do it. Harris Gardner, read the book. Can you tell there's a big buyer, not just retail? I think I said this. So Harris Gardner, I have countless colleagues and contacts or friends. You know, they fall somewhere in between. Some people you just know and they'll say we're friends, but you're not really friends. Some people are colleagues, contacts. You get the idea. I can count on my hand how many use the tape successfully and continue to use the tape reading. And they're all doing, scalping. They all do the same thing. It's just scalping on small cap, micro cap, that kind of thing. But otherwise, no. Never seen any value. Far more noise than it is signal. And there's a lot of things in stocks, guys, that is noise. There's so much data that you kind of it's like looking at a cloud. Like, I kind of see a rabbit. You see what you want to see, or you see it after the fact, or it works like once every 10 times, and you're like, oh, I knew it. So, yeah. Focus on growing one skill versus jack of all trades. Grow that one skill. Find a marketable skill and hyper-focus on that until you're okay. Then you can be a jack of all trades. Looking forward to watching the upload. Thank you, LKT. Yeah, absolutely. Representing ON. Ontario, Canada, or Ontario, California? John Rivera, with all the spending, they won't stop raising rates until starting to ease 1 year. I think their plan is to hit a neutral rate by the end of the year and then go from there, John. But in terms of cutting rates, most people don't see that till late 23. So I think that's reasonable. Thanks for all you do. Looking forward to the G Drive. Yeah, no problem. MS, lots of gems. Curious to know what's your big bear case bottom for the SPY target. Well, Dan, I mean, like I put up that image that I gave out to insiders. This is, I think, where we are almost immediately. We went from here to here immediately. And even just saying here, this wasn't like some guess. We were 10 points off. We had to get 10 points to move into one of my boxes. And I sent this email to insiders and said, we're moving to one of these boxes. Dovish, bearish. And again, they had captions. I'm pretty sure they did. I don't know what happened to my captions. Sometimes it happens. But yeah, I think there's more space to go down than there is to go up. Vlogs while you work out. Would you ever consider doing vlogs while you work out and talk about business, finance, or life in general? Like as I work out, like as I exercise, I'm pretty crazy about that sort of thing. I mean, again, when I say I'm pretty crazy about a lot of things, it's I can't help it. I obsess about too many things. But yeah, I'm obsessive over my exercising. I don't know, maybe. Maybe. I like to do little tidbits. Or life in general. Yeah, maybe some life stuff, some casual stuff to show my non-robot side. I'd have to think that through because privacy is a big thing. So like, I don't want to, I'm protective of everyone's privacy, and I don't like to just market people in my family. I'm like my wife. I'm not going to put her on camera unless she's completely comfortable with it, sort of thing. Whereas I see people throwing their relationships and other stuff around and throwing people in and out of that. Hinata, my beagle, is totally cool. Oh, she's poked her head up. Uh-oh. She's totally cool with being on camera. But everybody else, just like I would for all of you, I respect your privacy. A lot of people send me DMs about the results and say certain things, and I don't retweet them or reshare them. I say, look, you don't have to share your results just because something I did helped you. I love it when you let me know because I'm happy for you, but you don't even have to tell me about it. Just you be okay, take care of you and your family. It's all that matters. But if you want to share it with me, obviously it makes me happy. So, yeah, I'll try to think of something. Maybe we could come up with. Maybe I can come up with something. But again, a lot of the regular life stuff, I don't put anybody else in it because I'm respectful to them and protective. Particularly, especially kids. I do have lots of nephews and nieces. No kids of my own yet. And I love them dearly, but I'd never put them on camera or anything. Just I wouldn't be okay. They'd probably want to jump on. I wouldn't be okay. And then maybe something I could post a little bit more on some of the personal sort of mindset side, because that is a question I get a lot, and I'm sure that is a big value of sort of my mindset and approach to things. Because, like I said, I am only here because of my mind. It is my mindset that spurs me to develop skills, my decisions that put me in better places, and ultimately it's a combination. We know that in life. You could be hyper talented and not know how to put your talents out there and connect with people and get opportunities, or you could be very social and outgoing and not have the skills or the work ethic. It's all a combination. So yeah, it's all that kind of stuff. With long-term puts being so expensive and trying to find this hard market makes incredibly put spreads best in your opinion. Yeah, you could use put spreads dense age, or you could look at inverse funds. Like if it's just a fund, you do something like the SQQQ. Yeah, you could do spreads. I think that's an opportunity. So last thing, John Rivera. Before I subscribed to insiders, I didn't know anything really. Raising rates, okay, cool. I didn't know what that meant. Emoji. I have so much more knowledge now. Thank you. You're the real. Thanks, John. And I'm so happy Insiders is doing everything that I wanted to do. Live trading day would be awesome. Also check in from down the road. Oh yeah, Richmond, Texas. Awesome. Just past Katy, right? Yeah, down the road. What's your workout split frequency given all you're doing? 20-hour days, working side gig, developing balance. I'll try to carve out 1 hour for work. If it's more conditioning, I hate this, but in my rest moments, I'll move from, sounds like a mental screwball, but I'll move to listening to finance stuff on my rests. But I try to carve out 1 hour at some point. And I get little pockets. The way that it works is I'm not working 20 hours straight, not eating, like falling over, passing out. It's more like there's almost an 18 to 20 hour span, but I'll have like little pockets where I'll just leave and be like, hey, I've got an hour. I'll tell my wife, I'm like, let's go get a coffee, right? Or I'm on my way home from the office. I'm an hour and a half between now and when we have to turn around, pivot, do something else. Let's get a coffee. Or I'll hit my workouts and I'll try and plan them in. So usually near market close is when I'm trying to get my workout, but just before, like the last hour, maybe that window of 2 to 5 p.m. is usually like to get in, get out. And I've got like a home gym built out, but I'll also go to the gym because it's going to sound weird. I have a nice home gym. I like the fact that there's other people around me in a gym, and I like that I'm just dressed down, casual. No one really knows who I am. Everybody's equal in there, just trying to get some work done. I feel like I'm actually socializing, so it helps me not feel like all I do is work, even though I'm going to the gym to work and I'm very focused there. My frequency, I like to be in the gym 4 days a week, but it's very intensive. So sometimes I'll be down to 3, and then I walk every single day because I got to walk my dog. I guess we'll do like 5-minute Ask Me Anything here, and then we'll wrap up. We're hour 43 in. So if there's any other questions, feel free to ask me anything. Otherwise, we'll put a lid on this for today. Jay Powell did bull trap. I don't know if he intended to be misinterpreted. I mean, as much flack as I give the Fed, I think that was on the markets. That's why I was condemning the markets more than anything, and I was saying, you misinterpreted him. This is your fault, markets. To all these people doing this, you're misinterpreting. The Fed are coming out every day and saying you're wrong. We're going to do this, and everybody just listens. So I don't think we could say. I don't think you can call Jay Powell for a bull trap there. Do you create a portfolio with insiders with swing trades? No, I haven't created a separate portfolio, but we have a litany of swing trades along with others. But no, there's no separate portfolio sort of thing. Anything else? I know we're on a little bit of delay here. Yeah, I know I said 5 minutes, but hopefully it looks like I was able to get through all these. MS, how do I become an insider? That's everything you can do it through profitstaken.com. So that's profits. You can hear me typing. Profitstaken.com. Yeah. It kind of looks, I don't know why it's up in orange. Yeah, that is sort of the long and short of it. And hopefully that answered your question, Mr. King, on Jay Powell pertaining to a bull trap. Yeah, I don't see it that way. I think people walked into something misinterpreting and continued to feel as though they had it right until it took Chairman Powell really just saying, I'm going to say this. He changed the messaging. I mean, again, I disagree with a lot of what the Feds do, but it was almost like on his end, he took this and said, okay, somehow you guys completely misunderstood me. So I'm going to put this in really plain English. We're heading for pain. It's likely the job markets will soften and we're not done with interest rates because we're concerned about entrenched inflation. He kept it short and walked away. That is the most clear way of saying, you keep getting me wrong. So I'm going to put this in a way where you can't get it wrong. Like, what are you going to interpret that as? He's going to pivot. No, we're not stopping until everything's fixed. And that means there's pain ahead, and that's fine. We're going to go through that anyhow. Clear enough? I don't think you can accuse him of bull trap at that point. I find using your method you have to be extremely fast. Do you think about buying contracts 2 weeks? That would be a good idea. Yeah. Nick Wade, yeah, and I went over a strategy with insiders about that. Yeah, you can. Not just about, you don't have to worry about the expiry date only. Look at the strikes as well. Longs that you're looking at, well, we just had Meta as a short. Roblox was a short. All just got smashed. Not long anything right now, other than the ExxonMobil XOM position that I'm in, but that was purchased at a lower amount. That has been called out as a long position 4 times. And to give you an idea, within insiders, every other position has only been called out once. 4 times on ExxonMobil. And I was emphatic about it when we first got in, right as the Russia conflict kicked off, and that was about $75, and it reached 105. So I know everybody likes to think, oh, long positions, you don't make that much money. Yeah, you make good money there. And I was bullish on AMD. I think AMD has a bright future, but now is not the time, right? AMD I took in the 70s, low 80s again, rode that over 100, but I said we were trading the move. So, and I even talked about trimming that position. So we did trade that basic economic concepts. What are some good resources to understand basic economic concepts? Okay. Tyson Moss, and then one last question, whoever asked that next one. Yeah, like Tyson, when you hear about the things that are being discussed, just make sure you understand them, and I explain them in detail. CPI, PPI. Do you know what PPI is? That's a different one that I talk about. PCE. Understanding all those will help you understand economic concepts, because that's essentially what it is. Also understanding the GDP, what goes into that. Where are we right now? How much debt is accrued? So understand all those different acronyms, and don't just say, see, a lot of people hear CPI, they don't even know what it means, right? Like, if you say, what is that? They're like, it means inflation. Like, what's it stand for? Inflation? Okay. No. Right? So, yeah, dig in. Anything you want to say about the crypto market? I remain out of the crypto market. Not in the crypto market right now. I saw the downside coming, and within insiders, we traded, I talked about, in March, I said we're shorting Mara and Riot. Okay? And so let's see here. This is where this was our short line. I haven't updated it since. Yeah. And was this March? Yep. Look at the date. The date's up here. This is from insiders. 329, short around $31. Boom. And this is around at 7, actually sent an update to insiders saying, I feel good enough. There's not that much more space to go down. We've been consolidating here. We're out. So missed 2 points. Yeah. Talk about how shorting and long positions are no fun. This was our short on Mara. I'm not sure if I still have my entry lineup on. Yep. And there you go. Is this March? Yeah, there you go. 329. See the date? From insiders, 2269 down to 4. And of course, out somewhere around 5, sent an update. So that's my thoughts on crypto market. Crypto market was good enough to me. I think we were out in June. Was this June? Yep. There you go. If you look at the dates, this is June. Yeah, I know it went down further and it's rebounded. You could have taken it long, but I need to see some changes, and I do see a further development of some of the regulatory policies, not only as they pertain to the finance side, but also energy. And I'm looking at sort of the merge on Ethereum. So, all right, guys. Hopefully that was helpful. I lose my voice pretty easily, and it's starting to go talk all weekend long, all the time. So I've got a call coming up in a couple hours. I'll have a little bit of time, but there's some work to do. Insiders are going to be sending out some reports today, so there's a lot for everybody. We will do this. It's been a long time since we had a live space, so I wanted to make sure I really try to get through every single question and put some extra time. I know this is just free for all, and I don't owe anybody, but I owe it. I do. What I commit to, my word is very important, so I don't like to ever forget this. I like to make something free for everybody to join, and of course insiders can join this too, but I wanted to be here for everybody today. Yesterday didn't work out, but I ended up having more time today, so hopefully that was beneficial at some level. And thank you all for attending. Feel free to replay this. I will get it uploaded as soon as possible if it's not immediate from YouTube. All right, guys. Have a fantastic day.